All right, we are back online with the Creative Economy interviews. My name is Moritz Bierling, and today I have with me Seth Blaustein from Voice and Exit. Hi, Seth.
Hey, how's it going?
Going very well. Before we get to the conversation part, I will briefly talk about what Seth has done in his life so far. So he finished university with a BA in cinema and psychology, and has worked in the creative industry since 2008 as a producer, director, editor, freelance writer, and before co-founding Voice and Exit with Max Borders. There he is now the event director. And Voice and Exit is a very interesting event. You can't really call it conference because it's not really about listening to somebody in a passive way. Although there are some speeches, it really focuses on active involvement in your own life and changing something or transforming something and helping you make changes. So it brings together leaders, community builders, and innovators from diverse backgrounds who share one common goal: maximizing human flourishing. So the next one is actually going to be starting next Friday, not this week, but next week, and going until Sunday. And are there any more tickets left, Seth?
There's still a handful left. Yeah. If you wanted to come, we've got some space. But
right.
Yeah, it's been a good year though.
Great. Okay, so how are you doing? How's everything going with Voice and Exit?
It's going great, really. We're a week out, just about to the day, and so I'm a little crazy right now, running around getting a lot of the last minute details buttoned up. But I'm thrilled with the lineup that we have, the speaker lineup this year, the performances. It's always so much fun to tie everything together and bring in amazing people, and just the level of the quality of the attendees that come in is unbelievable. So I'm really excited to meet a lot of new people and see a lot of new people again.
Right. I guess you already have quite a dedicated community around this. Are you going to be seeing many people from the last ones?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's definitely a bunch of repeat people, and I mean, we've sort of built this event as this community was emerging. So it's really evolved a lot with the event, and then a little bit digitally, but honestly more so in the live person event. And so we're very excited to do more events throughout the year, in-person events throughout the year, because right now our bandwidth really only enables us to do one big event annually. So.
Right. Yeah, I remember from our conversations during this year that you have plans for taking this to a different level. Do you think? But before we go there, like, how was B&E actually born? Like, did it happen organically? Was there like some point where like you and Max came together and said, "Okay, we have to do this"? Like, how did it happen?
Yeah. Well, let's see. I met Max about 5 years ago, and very quickly we had a just strong kind of brotherly connection on a lot of things. You know, we saw the world in similar ways. We both had a very strong sense of there's amazing things out there that seem so brilliant that you wonder why are they not more adopted? And
right.
Just when those things start to pile up more and more, you start thinking like, what can we do to help bring these things more into the mainstream, things that are typically found on the fringes, constantly, labeled contrarian ideas. There was really no one good place to get really high quality stories and information along those lines. You get it in niches and pockets here and there, but not in a kind of concentrated dose, which is what we really yearned for. And honestly, initially, we'd sort of had this concept of a hybrid version of a TED conference. And we've been super inspired by TED. We give a lot of credit to the original inspiration to the format that TED has come up with for short talks. And really, honestly, though, we had a kind of dissatisfaction with how the event format was. I'd been to several TED events, and awesome, amazing, very inspiring, but very one way. It's kind of expert on a stage. And so we had a lot of ideas for how we think we could have improved that model. And the first year was really thrown together, with blood, sweat, and tears. And it was essentially a speaker series, but it had more of the kind of core, what's now the Voice and Exit kind of ethos. And it's just evolved from there into a completely other beast. You know, now it's the first event in 2013 was an evening speaker series. Now it's a going on 5-part portion event that's over the course of 2.5 days. And it really, like you said, it's not really a conference. It's not really a festival. It's kind of in its own kind of hybrid category, where, again, not satisfied with the typical conference model where you just have ideas kind of dumped on you, and yeah, you network and you meet cool people, but they tend to be quite cerebral and not have enough of the kind of aesthetic or the heart kind of experience of it. And then there's other things like festivals, which are kind of completely in the opposite direction. That are all aesthetic and the sensorial part of the experience, and that has its own amazing benefits. And what we really set out to do with Voice and Exit was to bridge the head and the heart, and to make it a kind of more integral experience for attendees, while exploring in concentrated doses these really kind of what for most people, you know, are mind-blowing ideas, because they're out there on the fringes, which is, you know, we did a video. I found this quote of Steve Jobs a while back. Actually, I did a podcast with Stephen Kotler over a year ago, where he said the future is never found in the mainstream, it's always found in the fringes. And then recently I found this clip of Steve Jobs saying the exact same thing, and we made a little video on Voice and Exit's page about it. And it really is true, you know, I mean, it seems so obvious, but it's always going to be weird stuff on the edges of possibility that's called weird until 60 years later it's the mainstream, and everybody, you know, it's considered common sense or something that's just implicit. And so we're really interested in finding the things that are kind of out there on those edges and bringing them together, you know, for a pretty mind-blowing experience.
Right, yeah. When I think of Voice and Exit in my mind, I always think of kind of, when I scroll through my Facebook feed, everything that I see there is kind of put into that one 3-day event. I mean, I've never been myself, I would love to, but it kind of combines all of that technology, beautiful artistic things, transformational experiences, ideas, all that stuff that I love to consume passively, admittedly, unfortunately, most of the time. And puts it really together with people, makes it a social experience, and asks us to not simply stay constrained to the seat, but actually get up and do stuff. Because I know that you have not only like the speaker saying something, but there are like actually like workshops. Like I think you have seeds, then you have sprouts, and you have blossoms. What are those?
Yeah, so the overall format experience. So to take one step back, Max and I are both storytellers. He comes from more of a writing background. I come from a filmmaking background. That's my heavy background is in production, directing, writing, producing, and a lot of editing too. And so we've just taken that approach when we think about a in-person experience. What is you know, when you watch a film or you read a book, you want to have some kind of transformative experience. That's kind of the goal. Yet you lack some things that you gain from events. You know, events don't scale quite as well as books and movies, but you have this very in-person, touch it, feel it, see it, taste it kind of experience. And you can do a lot with that. And so we've really taken that thread to event planning and the event experience. And so that's kind of the mindset we took to designing the experience. And what you mentioned, seed, sprouts, blooms, and harvest are the 4 primary parts of the event over 2.5 days. Seeds are essentially short format talks. It's a powerful dose of amazing speakers, thinkers who are kind of inventing new paradigms across what it means to be human, altogether, from self to how we interact with one another as interdependent beings on the community level to the global level, and how really the global transformations begin all the way back at what we do as individuals and groups. And so seeds are short format talks. They're presented in a very narrative format. We actually last year had a fictitious host from the future named Theta, and who actually was I like to think of it, you know, Voice and Exit is kind of like an amazing sci-fi film that you sit down in and you experience, but you're not sitting in the theater just watching it. You're there, and the heroes are real people doing real things that have real potential to transform the world and be, you know, real heroes.
Right.
And so that's Seeds is really short format talks told in a very kind of cinematic way with some performances woven into it. Then Sprouts. Sprouts are really our answer to what we would have liked to see at some other events we've been to, which is that we don't want it to just be a one-way conversation where you have the amazing person on stage and then you're just kind of left to yourself to soak that up. Sprouts is really about going deeper into that idea, the Seeds Talks ideas, and sometimes they take on different formats, but they're usually as interactive as they possibly can be while enabling attendees to get to know one another better, get to know the ideas better, and to get their hands on those ideas. Blooms is really the heart of Voice and Exit, is the beating heart, the cultural element of it with live music, performances, future tech installations. We've got a lot of VR stuff this year. A lot of fun VR stuff. To give you an idea, a couple of teaser things at Blooms this year. I mean, aside from having 3 really incredible music acts, Baseline Drift, Hana, and Bliss Goddess, we also have a virtual DJ. If you're familiar with The Wave, we're going to have a virtual DJ set. There is a game called Sound Self from an amazing kind of transformative tech entrepreneur named Robin Arnott here in Austin. Who has a game called Sound Self, and it's a trance-inducing video game. And I've played it before. It's a VR game. It's definitely induces something.
Wow.
It's really cool.
I also heard there's something like meditation battles.
Yeah, there's meditation deathmatch, which is really fun. Their mantra for it is relax harder. And it's these really, I like to think of them as kind of consciousness pirates that are in Austin who are hacking and coming up with novel ways to use transformative technology. Technology that enables us to have glimpses into our being, on the internal level, but using external physical technologies to enable that.
Right.
And yeah, it's really fun. You tee off with someone with EEG headsets. And they measure your brainwaves. I think they measure alpha. I'm not entirely positive what their algorithm is, but I think they're measuring alpha. And if whoever is going into a higher alpha state, you get points. And there's from what I remember last year, we had them here last year as well. There's a Mortal Kombat death kill sequence for whoever wins as well. And they'll do tournament style. And we'll have some prizes. One of them is a Muse headset, which is awesome, from Interaxon. And so yeah, we've got a lot of fun stuff. Bulletproof Coffee is going to be there. Guayaki is going to be there. A lot of amazing products, amazing organizations that are doing really, really cool things. And we put it into just a fun experience. And one of the things, just to mention one other thing, that I'm really excited about is if you're familiar with Google Tilt Brush, we're going to have a live virtual reality painting that's going to be happening throughout Blooms that you'll be able to see from a camera. So you'll see this artist, Topher Sipes. He's an amazing visionary artist in Austin who's going to be working. But if you're just standing there, it's going to look like he's a crazy person with a piece of plastic on his face, just painting in the air. But when you see it on the camera, which will be projected on a very large monitor, you'll see what he's seeing, which is I can't wait to see it. I don't know what it's going to be. Something amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. It really reminds me or it really makes me think of a switch from kind of the television, the passive experience, to like this immersive VR, as you said, like VR experience. Like we see this in every industry of human activity right now, like consumption media. Like instead of receiving the information one way, we're actually interacting with it. And VR storytelling, I think, is something very interesting because people have to actually define new rules and chart new territory that isn't explored yet. So definitely interesting stuff. But you mentioned that this time it's a little bit different. Like what things have changed since the last time or since you actually got started?
So last year was the first time that we added Harvest, and the reason, just to tie that up, I realized I didn't actually mention Harvest. Harvest is all about integrating the experience. So lots of new ideas. You've met lots of amazing people, and most conferences have this kind of conference high that you have for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And then it kind of, as you go back to your regular life and the habits and the patterns of your regular life, you kind of lose sight of that experience. And and we got a lot of feedback 2 years ago that the ideas were so mind-blowing that and there were so many of them that it was actually difficult to integrate the experience. It was kind of like this, like your lid was blown off and just you're kind of left there. And we don't want to do that. We really want to empower attendees to be able to take this information, to use the hero's journey kind of analogy, to take the gems of wisdom back from their adventure and bring it back into their life, bring it back to their community and share it at that level. And so Harvest is completely designed to help you integrate, absorb, reflect on what you've learned and help sort of just absorb it and assimilate it. And so there's some mindfulness kind of aspects to that. And then we're working with an amazing user experience design agency in Austin named Handsome. And they do amazing work synthesizing a lot of ideas and figuring out which ones are the best. And they're going to be hosting 2 Harvest sessions this year, all about how we pull the gems out of what we've received over the weekend and how we put that into form. Because ultimately, ideas are just ideas. If they're not being embodied in some way or being actually created into some form, then they just remain in the head, and that's not nearly as fun.
Right. Yeah, I remember reading this book by Paul Rosenberg, both A Lodging of Wayfaring Man and also Breaking Dawn. And in both of these, he talks about the idea that ideas actually take some time to really settle into your mind and integrate into your deeper structures. That's what he called the deeper structures. So basically, before you, once you hear an idea, it takes a long time for it to kind of refactor everything else in light of that idea and change your actions. And so I really like that you're taking an active and kind of a responsible, or like you're taking responsibility for helping the attendees make something out of that, not just let it be another thing that kind of drops in, blows something off, as you said, and then slips away again.
Yeah, and I think these kinds of approaches to just information in general are becoming obviously increasingly more important with so much noise out there, that when you choose to integrate something, I really want to build this habit or integrate this concept or this idea or this philosophy into my life, there's practices that can help enable that and help you focus in on what's really important, identify through the noise what's really important. So absolutely. The thing that we are adding this year that's completely new is something called the Future Cities Forum. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, this is really at the heart of what Voice and Exit is all about, which is people who are exiting kind of current status quo paradigms of life, particularly in the form of communities, and going elsewhere to create new ones. Sometimes you use voice to change things in your existing community, and if that doesn't quite work, if your idea or your concept of what is human flourishing for you and your community doesn't work there, then we encourage people to exit, go create anew. And we're seeing a lot of this. I mean, what you're doing, you're down in, where you're from Germany, right?
Yes.
And where are you living?
Right now I'm in Chile, but I'm actually close to moving from here to Brazil. We're moving all of our stuff there. So yeah, I've already joined one community that itself is moving away from a part.
Yeah, and I think that's a beautiful process of individuals and groups being willing to migrate and being willing to move and to allow experimentation on the community level to happen, because we really need that. I think we think about our geographical location as something fairly fixed. You're kind of born into a set of laws, a set of rules, a set of practices, a set of cultural norms, and we just kind of absorb that, and then that's who we are, or so we think. And I really I think that there's just a beautiful diversity of humanity, and there's beautiful possibilities, and you can't really, it's difficult to unlock that if you're not willing to exit what you have become accustomed to in any way possible, and experiment, explore, and build alternate models that others can join, or and often they fail too, which is part of the process, part of the what makes amazing products become more amazing, is the process of failure, iteration, and
I've seen the same in my own kind of journey since I joined Exosphere back in 2014. Like, I definitely had my own fair share of failed experiments and projects. We tried to start a consulting agency, didn't work out, but I learned a huge deal in the process. I started my own first business ventures with a friend that I met in Budapest at the Space Elevator conference and bootcamp that we organized. Like, strange stuff and very interesting people from all over the world coming to these things, and it really like opens your mind to how much you don't know what is out there, and kind of adjusts your mindset for what is actually possible. Like, you kind of start to factor in the things that you don't yet know, but that must be out there in a way. I don't know.
Exactly. That's I was really thinking about this today, actually, that and this isn't one of those there's two kinds of people in the world cliches, but sometimes those are useful for thinking about trends and culture and society. And in some way, there's really two general categories if you think about it from this lens. People who sort of just plainly accept whatever they're born into, whether it's social norms, parental rules, school, laws, currency, all of the models, all of the paradigms of life, from the ground up, down to how we get around in transportation infrastructure, all of these things that we just become models that we take for granted. Most of us, and it's very natural. This isn't like, these people in one category are cool and these people aren't. Just plainly accept that, and that's fine for their whole lives. And whatever the news says is kind of what's going on, and you just don't develop that filter of, is this something that is my opinion, belief? Is this something that I really own internally, that I believe is the best model for me, or not? And then there's this other category, I think, are people who aren't just going to look at what's happening on the surface, who really want to understand what's going on at the root of something. It's the difference between doctors who treat symptoms and doctors who look for root causes.
Right.
And I think that just in general, the kind of state of the world right now is the state of consciousness of humanity in many ways is really just contented looking at what it is, or what it appears to be on the surface, and just accepting that. And it's sad because there's so many cool, awesome, brilliant ideas that are sitting in plain sight in many ways that are just completely pushed off to the fringe.
Right.
And so that's really what Voice and Exit is all about, is just like, let's put together a forum for these ideas, and to build culture around them, to enable them to have more legs. And because there's just so many amazing solutions out there. There's so many amazing heroes out there that are doing incredible things that just aren't seen, because the mental models of most people, are just not looking for that. There's more of the accepting of the patterns. Right.
Yeah. We are seeing how that is turning out right now with the presidential elections, and I hate to bring them into this video, but it's definitely interesting to watch from afar how the conversation is developing, but also how some of that kind of what you just talked about with this safe contentedness of looking at things only at face value is, I see some of that kind of falling away, and some of that being dismantled by like people who have their own lenses, who have developed their own lenses consciously, and who are applying them to all of that appears out there. And they have been so far kind of far and few between, and not really connected. And now I see many of them coming together and kind of forming this decentralized network of people who apply their own mental models and their own lenses to all of these problems, and help people get their opinions from many different sources instead of just one that is just masqueraded as different outlets like Washington Post, New York Times, etc. Like that all talk about the same things, but actually like they just try, like they just seem like they are different entities. But yeah, I don't know. What has been the most transformative experience that you have had at Voice and Exit so far? Can you talk about
Voice and Exit?
Yeah.
Oh man, honestly, I have quite a different experience from most people at the event. To be completely honest, last year, for example, I mean, I'm running, doing a lot of the organizational logistical elements of the event, the day of the event. So I'm in a very different frame of mind from most attendees. But it's, for example, someone came up to me last year and was just kind of like grabbed me by the shoulders and was just like, thank you. This is so awesome. Thank you for doing it. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm so glad that you are having that experience, and I really love what I do. I really love creating. I love making these experiences happen. It's really my passion, storytelling. And for me, the event is a story, and it happens in real time, and it happens with real people. And I get a lot of joy out of it. But it is a different experience from attendees.
Right. So, have you ever taken part, like, in at least part of the attendee viewpoint, or have you always been like behind the scenes?
Every year, I get a little bit closer to having moments where I can really just say pretend like I'm an attendee and just sit down. And I've only had glimpses of that, honestly.
Right.
But yeah, there's always a few moments. Some parts of the event, Blooms, for example, you kind of set up the pieces and the players and light a fuse and just kind of watch what explodes. And it's beautiful, and there's not much, you don't want to, I mean, I think planning for anything, there's the balance of creating space for things to just happen. And that's always the goal. And not to actually, to plan from the top down as little as possible. With events, there's just so much of that you have to do to make it happen. But then watching just what emerges, is really cool. So yes, this year, I hope to have more and more glimpses of just being an attendee.
Right. Well, maybe your future plans, which you can talk about in a minute, will allow you to kind of take part in other people's organized versions of Voice and Exit, what that looks like for their local area, I guess. Like, is that in the works?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had several people from multiple countries reach out and want to organize independent Voice and Exit events. We love it. We really want to do it. It's just the phase we're at with our growth. We're super focused on making the event in Austin the best that it can possibly be, and to really getting kind of our model right for the event. But yeah, I mean, we've had requests from Moldova to Boston to Chile. We're very excited to do one down in South America at some point. And I'm excited to see that grow a lot more. I think over the next couple years, we're really going to start taking those requests seriously, and giving the ability to the network that's out there to throw these events and to have these important conversations, and to build that decentralized network of amazing information.
Right. I mean, we've had the same kind of a task ahead of us, where we had to, for 3 years, basically experiment with our models for these programs, these 2-month programs that we've been doing. And now we've kind of found something that actually works well and is possibly scalable, that we can kind of help push it into the next level. And I see that happening not only with us, with Voice and Exit, but also with many of these other kind of small but growing seeds that are trying to do new things. Yeah, and maybe, who knows, maybe we will work together next year or the year after and make a Voice and Exit in Brazil.
We would love to.
All right. Thanks for the conversation, Seth. I'm sure we will talk soon, and have a lot of luck and I think great experiences with Voice and Exit 2016.
Thanks, man. It was fun. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Talk to you soon.
Bye.